Hey y'all, so today we're going to be kind of just going over some collar guards, or some overstrike guards as we like to call them. They can go on amazingly a lot of different ways. There's a lot of different techniques for putting these on, just for strapping them on. And I've got them right here. You can go, probably the two biggest differences that people will do is you can go over, down, in, and then out, and then again under, and then down and over. So that right there is probably a little bit of a tighter fit, and I will go ahead and demonstrate that here in just a second, but I tend to think that it looks a little bit more ungangly. So I just wanted to show before we get into actually installing one of them, I'm only going to do it one way, and I'm going to do it the way that I think looks better, which is this one right here, which is a over, and then you go under, and then you come back over. So let's go ahead. And then the finished tie can also be done many different ways, and some people will run it up and keep your tails just completely clean, and then you can even cut them off. I'll go ahead and demonstrate that as well. Or I really do not mind having just a box knot looks out here on the end. And you can see if you wanted to trim these off, you could trim them off. Some people, I will sometimes just for the effect of it kind of do and make even a little bit of a big knot there on the end. To me, that looks very nice. So there's a lot of different options as far as your finishing tie off goes. And once again, I'm not going to do every different variation that you can do, because you can experiment with what looks best to you. So let me go ahead and point out a couple of other things. One being right here. So this right here is a Council Tool 24-inch camp axe. And if you notice, one of the good things about these Wiseman overstrike guards is that you can put it on in two different ways. You've got, generally speaking, this is the preferred way to put it on, as far as, I mean, with this, with the curve here versus backwards, because they really were designed to be used with axes that have the ears here. And you can see. Now, ears, of course, are going to vary between every different brand and every different style of axe. You can, I'll go ahead and hold these up here, and you can kind of see how they work just a little bit different. This is an Anaby, I believe, a Holtzbrook Anaby, and you can see it just about fits perfectly. I mean, that's almost like it was just made for this axe. And of course, being that it's leather, and that's what I want to point out, there is some give to it. So like in this case, if you can see, I've kind of just looped this up, and because it wouldn't ride all the way up, and that's given it a nice, actually even a nice effect. Now that may cause it to want to loosen up a little bit more over time, although I don't think that it even will. But another thing to keep in mind is that if you wanted to, being that it's leather, a nice utility blade, you can just trim that and just fit it to whatever ears you do have, and you can literally get it to exactly match your axe. It may not look quite as clean, just make nice, clean, shallow cuts and firm cuts, and you can literally shape it to whatever ears that you may have on your axe, or you can flip it around, and like I said, sometimes that works if you've got an axe head like maybe a Hudson Bay that has a flat bottom of your axe head. You could use this end. Generally speaking, that does not work wonderfully on the majority of axes because it is tapered, and I will go ahead and take this off right now and show you. Gonna go ahead and pull this off. Another thing to keep in mind, okay, so one of the variations here, well, let me go ahead and start back over. And there are multiple different ways to start out by putting this guard on, because you could lay it down and lace up through until you get kind of a little bit of a loose feel, and then run your axe down through it. I tend to not be a fan of that, even though it can have a little bit of a smoother run to it. But I'm not going to do that because I just don't like the feel of it. Now, when you get to this point right here, they're even starting out, you've got a couple of different options, because if you notice on this one, I'm going up and over even on the first start. And I tend to like that because you're going over the outside on your first loop tends to hold it real tight. Now, the reason some people prefer, and actually all of these, when you go over the outside, it's going to tend to hold them a little bit closer. And that's why I prefer this style, the over to the under, is because it gives you a little cleaner and a little tighter fit. Now, are there some negatives to it? Yes. And I'm going to go ahead and demonstrate that here for you just real quick. So generally speaking, you don't need any tools for doing this. I tend to like being that if I'm going over, will not even use that. So if I'm going over and then pushing it in, you can just use pull that out. And I'll just kind of tighten it up until it's comfortable to deal with. And then, now I do like to, it doesn't really matter, but I do tend to like to keep him crossing in the same direction. So like this one right here, I did not, and that will make it look much cleaner if you're always crossing with the same one. Okay, now let me show you a little bit why one of these is better than the other in some aspects. So the over under here, I can take this, and I prefer not to use, if you pull on these with this is very strong, good leather, heavyweight leather, but no matter what you're using, if you're using one of these tools, it can almost cut like a knife and you can get them to break off. And there's no need for it. The temptation is there for some people, but you really don't need to. Okay, so when you're running over the top like this, see, you're able to get a pretty good tight looking finish, and it's really pretty clean. Now if we were to say come back, and it almost like locks it up. It almost locks it. You can see that it was almost, as you pull, it was almost locking it. But I want to demonstrate here what happens if you go the other way. Measure your ends off, get them kind of close. Something that I do like to do is, see, you could run down and over and do a little fancy thing up here with that loop. It looks a little fancy, but to me it ends up looking a little wonky and doesn't really give you any benefit. So I just like to do a clean, even loop. So if you notice now, I'm actually going under. But by having this clean loop as close as you can get it here, you can get some good gripping, especially on an axe here. See where you've got a little bit of a rise on the handle? It can actually help to grip real close to the handle, and it can help it to keep it cinched up to the eye of the axe there. All right, now, and this right here is really where this pliers, needle nose pliers, comes in handy if you're going on the inside. Okay. Okay, so you can see it actually, this way, it does not want to keep it nearly as tight as doing the over under, and as tight a fit there. And some people say, well, this makes a gigantic difference. I don't really notice that it does, because you have to remember that basically in the reverse direction, it's working the same thing. Whether it goes in or out, it's coming out in one or the other. So it's almost a moot point. To me, it's more of an aesthetic to the individual axe that you like. Now, it does play a role when you go to tightening it, because see, if you notice, this right here is being a little looser on when I go to tighten it up, but that's not necessarily a bad thing either, because it allows me to almost cinch it up from the back side. So this is really more of a personal preference, and I want you all to know that. Some people are just dead set, there's only one way to put that on, but see, that actually makes a very nice, clean look as well. Now, you can be very careful and keep the split ends of your leather facing in one direction. I tend to not care so much, because I'm almost glad to see a little bit of a variation in the leather. To me, having the split ends coming out of the side of the leather is actually very attractive. I don't like, some people you can also twist, if you can imagine, you could like twist this as you are going, and that can give a very nice effect as well. I don't know if there's any durability issues with that, but see, look at how clean and nice that ends up looking. And if you notice, you've got that kind of pulled up there, and keeps it kind of everything very clean. Now, if I wanted to run, I'll show you what I would do. You could just back off. Another reason I kind of like under here. And on your larger axis, you got to remember that you won't be able to do this nearly as much. And you could just run this under a few of them if you wanted to. And there's also nothing wrong with, if you wanted to start at the other end and go up. I just tend to find that this is much more appealing in color to do this. I don't like this nearly as well. Whoops, and I should have taken an end loop down here if I was going to do this, but anyways, y'all will get the idea of what I'm trying to accomplish. And if it's not exactly perfect for you. And I'm not going to stop here now, because you might as well see what's going to happen. Okay. All right, now in this case, you want to kind of, and I might just vary, but you want to kind of barely pull outside, not getting any of your sideways movement on. So there you've got something different. So there's just a lot of different variations you can see on this. If you go to pull it up, that can tend to try to help just in case, especially if you don't get a good loop here. This can keep try to help it from sliding down just a tad, but it can also over time kind of just wear in and like pull on these corners here. So a lot of what a lot of what you're seeing here is just that there's a lot of variations that can be done that have a lot of appeal to them. You could even literally just build up some right here and then just clip off, and that would take some of your versatility out later, but that usually keeps it from pulling back in and makes for a really clean, interesting looking tie. So anyways, this video is already getting long enough, and I think that you get the basic idea for the variations that can be done. There are also different color leather, which like a black leather lace. We don't have that option available right now, but hey, aftermarket leather lace, or you can check out our website. We may have that in the future. But just a lot of variations. And like I said, on this axe, the ears, this almost fit perfectly. I was more interested in kind of showing you all rather than double checking to make sure I was getting even on both sides. But even so, you can see whether it kind of comes up over the steel, that doesn't really matter, or if it kind of rides down just a tiny bit. So anyways, I want to go ahead, this video is getting long enough, but I just more than anything wanted to show you some of the different variations and kind of how some of them look different on different axes. So some people will also, they will want their axe handle. We've got a larger axe guard for your larger axes. Some people want them to almost loop up and come, you know, almost touch. Some people prefer, some people actually on a larger axe actually just want these to come up, ride halfway up on their handle just for the effect of it. And really there's nothing wrong with having, you know, more lace. Obviously, if you get too large, you're gonna run out of lace, but you could extend that. Anyways, I'm gonna, one last thing. I do recommend, as you can see, whether you've got this rubber on here while you're working or just taping a piece of cardboard as a blade guard, really recommend that, especially if you're going to be experimenting and trying some of the different ties or what have you. So make sure to check out our videos, check out our axe collars on our website, and I think you also like to check out some of the different axe designs. Like I said, the Council Tool Company here, Holtzbrook Company there. We thank you for watching. Let us know if you've got any. Oh, hey, and make sure put on in the comments section. Make sure and put in the comments section if any of you have a favorite tie or want to suggest one. I'd love to hear what our subscribers are thinking, and I'm sure that our other folks out there that are looking, hey, how do I tie an axe collar or an overstrike guard? Sure, that's what this community is really all about, is the ability to pick up. Love reading the comments. So thank you all. God bless, and we'll see you on the next video.